to Naptime Nuggets number 55. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about dealing with disrespect. Oh boy. Yes, we are. Very important topic. You may have noticed, especially in children 3 and older, they have a tendency to exert their power, and usually in ways that aren't so wonderful. So that's the unfortunate part of it all. So you might have gotten into a power struggle with a 3-year-old who's absolutely refusing. I remember when my daughter was 2 and I said, "Do you want the red cup or the green cup?" And she chose the red cup, and she had a lot of difficulty with that. She chose that cup and she really wanted the other cup, but she still just thought about those 2 cups. And then she was 3 years old and I said, "Do you want the red cup or the green cup?" And she said, "I want the blue one." "Oh yeah, I hear you. You want that blue one, but I gave you a choice, the red cup or the green cup." And my little 3-year-old says, "I want the blue one." I said, "Well, you need to go ahead and wash it then because it's in the dishwasher." And she said, "You wash it." I'm like, what? Disrespect. And I'm sure you guys have seen it too. Kids refusing to do activities, saying things like, "You're not the boss of me," or "You're not my mom," or "You're not my dad," something like that. And that can be really frustrating and aggravating. You might even have found yourself doing this where you're like, so frustrated in that moment with a child who's showing disrespect. So I'm going to give you some specific examples and tips and tools today to work with those specific difficult behaviors when it comes to disrespect. So we're going to be talking about discipline today. How do you, when a child does something disrespectful, they know you've taught them is wrong, they jump in, they're disrespectful, what's effective discipline? So what I want to think about is when that child's questioning, why, that can feel disrespectful, right? When 3-year-olds are challenging us. So I want to think about what we want to do to change that behavior around, to get kids going, yeah, okay, I'll do it, and being cooperative. So the effective discipline I'm going to be referring to when it comes to dealing with that disrespect is going to have tips to get the child to do the behaviors that you want them to do. Yes, to have respectful behaviors. It's going to get the child to stop doing those behaviors you need them to stop doing. It's going to teach the child what they need to learn. But also, and this is the one that is really valuable for the child's future, it's going to leave the child feeling connected and valued. So even though you're dealing with their disrespect, they're not going to feel disrespected themselves. They're not going to feel mad at you because you're so rude back or something. So they're going to still feel connected and valued after you dole out your discipline for disrespect. And the last one, which is my personal favorite, it's going to leave you feeling good about your response. So I shared a couple Naptime Nuggets ago when I had some response to disrespectful behavior that wasn't so great. And so let's look at what we can do that would be effective and help really get the child to do what you want them to do, stop doing what you need them to stop doing, but leaves their sense of connection to you in place and leaves you feeling good. So we're not talking, when we say effective discipline, it's not punishment, chastisement, regulation, order, control, obedience. Yeah, those are words that some people really value. But remember, respect is given. Esteem is given. You can't force it from a child. You can't make a child have a good attitude or have respectful behavior. You can promote it and you can address it when disrespect happens, but punishing, actually, what the research has found, can end up increasing disrespect over time. So you want them to want to be good for you. So I love this quote. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If they don't know how to swim, we teach. If they don't know how to multiply, we teach. If they don't know how to drive, we teach. If they don't know how to behave, we teach? Is that the word that came to your mind? Or did punish come to your mind? So are we going to teach or punish? Well, why wouldn't it be as easy with the last one? They're learning how to behave. They're only 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, even 12 years old. They're learning how to stand up for themselves. They're learning to speak their mind in respectful ways. So why can't we answer that last one the same? Teach. We need to teach them when they don't have the skills, right? When they're acting disrespectful. So let me ask you, just think about, When did you learn to listen and follow other people's directions without question? When did you learn to wait for long periods of time for something you really wanted? When did you learn to resolve conflict in a positive and productive way? When did you learn to speak up for yourself in a respectful way? When did you learn to identify how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and how you can express those really strong feelings appropriately? When did you learn these? And to do them all the time, consistently. So, how many of you are like me and you say, I'm still learning? Do you feel like that? I'm still learning. I'm still learning. Yeah. So I don't do all these things perfect. And I know very few adults who do all these things perfect. So we can't expect kids to be better than we are, right? So what can we do? We need to work to teach them. So effective discipline it's instructing, educating, preparing, assisting, training, coaching, teaching, explaining, showing, demonstrating. All these are effective discipline. So when somebody says nobody disciplines their kids, you might be talking about punishment, but effective discipline, the kind of discipline that has been shown to really get the results we want, that's in this category, the kind that really instructs, teaches, and supports skills. So that's where my strategies are going to come from. So what do children need to learn in order to be respectful? If discipline is about teaching, if when they don't know how to behave, it's about teaching, well, what do they need to learn? Well, here's my list. There's others, right? But if they can have empathy for other people, for what it feels like for you when they speak disrespect, if they can learn some manners, flexible thinking to know that what means disrespect to you might be different than what means disrespect to grandma or your childcare provider or something like that. So they really have to learn and be flexible in different scenarios. So you say, tell the truth and be honest. That's respectful. Well, it's not if you think somebody doesn't look very good in their clothes, right? That's not respectful. So they have to learn the ability to apply rules in certain scenarios. It's not easy to learn all the rules that they need to learn. And they have to have impulse control. So even if they can remember the rule and get how it's different, they have to then be able to stop that impulse from saying, Mommy, why is he in that funny chair, when they see somebody in a wheelchair? If they don't know, they're just like being curious. They're talking out loud. So they have to be able to remember the rules. So they're always learning. So think about, what are we teaching in our response? Because remember, I'm going to give you 3-step process for absolutely squashing disrespect. So what are we teaching has to be part of the question. So if I'm teaching like this, if I'm saying, don't you disrespect me, young lady, what is that teaching? What is she actually learning? Is that learning to give me esteem and respect and value? How about, you did that wrong, you made a mistake, now you're going to get punished, you go to your room? What are they learning? Are they learning respect? So you're going to find, is it teaching? Is it supporting skills? Is it coaching, showing, demonstrating? So here's this little girl, she's at the top of the slide, and I as her little friend is waiting for her, and I can say, that you go down the slide right now. Your friend is trying to come up the slide. You need to slide down the slide. Slide down the slide. Come on, go down the slide, right? I can do that, but I can also say something like, oh, your friend is coming. Let's show him respect. I'm going to have you slide down the slide in 1, 2, 3. Yay! It was your turn, and now it's Marcus's turn. That's showing respect. It's getting the child to do what I want them to do, stop doing what I want them to stop doing in a really respectful way. I'm also teaching them about the word respect. So we want them we really want to respond to disrespect in a way that teaches the lesson that we want them to learn. So 3-step process for dealing with disrespect. Are you ready? Number 1, teach respect. Number 2, address disrespect. I'm going to give you few great tools for addressing disrespect. And then number 3, circle back around. We'll be talking about these 3. So when you see this behavior, something rude, right? What are you going to do? Well, first you need to teach respect. Okay, I'm going to read this quote to you. I was raised to show respect. I was taught to knock on the door before I open it, say hello when I enter a room, say please and thank you, and to have respect for my elders. I'd let another person have my seat if they need it. Say yes, sir, and no, sir, and help others when they need me to, not stand on the sidelines and watch. Hold the door for a person behind me. Say excuse me when needed, and to love people for who they are and not what I can get from them. And most importantly, I was raised to teach people exactly how I would like to be treated by others. It's called respect. So some of you might be nodding and going, yes, yes, I agree. I was taught that too. I wasn't taught this. Not all of it, were you? This is cultural. These behaviors, saying yes, sir, and no, sir, if you grew up in the South, that's very natural. Where I grew up, you didn't say yes, sir, and no, sir. You didn't really say excuse me. So I remember I was about 8 years old and I was looking at some shoes at the shoe store, and I went to pass in front of somebody also looking at shoes, and she goes, you could say excuse me. How rude. I was thinking, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I just hadn't been taught that you use those manners. You say excuse me before you walk in front of them. So it's not a given that kids will just know what respect is. So one totally awesome tool that I just love, it comes down to this neat little thing right here that I'm going to be linking on my blog later. It's a stop go stick. So basically I'll give you these sheets, you can print them out, and they have stops and they have goes, and then you attach it to a stick and you let the little kids have it. And then you just teach all sorts of respectful behaviors. Make a list of all the things that kids can do that show respect, and then the things that they do that show disrespect. And so the respectful behaviors are go behaviors, and the disrespectful behaviors are stop behaviors. So I'm going to show a little bit of this video of this teacher.
I have a picture of a friend who's running in the classroom, using his feet for running. Guys, is that a stop or is that a go? It's a stop. Can you show me your red side? That's a stop. I see some reds. Very good. That's a stop. I have a friend, and you know what? They want to get through. So what he does is he kicks his friend's leg out of the way. Is kicking a go or is kicking a stop?
Stop!
Kicking is a stop. We use our feet for walking. What are go things and what are stop things?
All right. Did you see how she was using that circle time teaching opportunity to actually teach this? You could talk about it at the dinner table. You could talk about it at snack time when kids are calm. What I love about this video, which I will also link to on my blog so you can share with other people, is that she's really talking about behaviors and teaching skills. And did you notice how all the kids were engaged? Isn't that amazing? They love talking about these kinds of things, 3 and older. So 2 and younger, they're not going to understand the nuances of respect and disrespect, but they can start to learn it in the 3s. I remember showing up at an elementary school, and this little, he's probably 4 or 5 years old, he opened the door for me. This little boy did. I was like, wow, somebody has been teaching him respect. It was so cool. So that's number 1, is take the time to teach. And then, of course, you're going to teach all the skills, but then what's going to happen? Sometimes they're still going to make mistakes because they're young. They don't know. They're learning. So what you do, this is what happens. A disrespectful moment happens. And to address it, you're going to first show your disapproval. Show it non-verbally, clearly matching your verbals. You might say something like, stop, please. Didn't I look serious? I didn't have to get loud. I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to scream. I just, stop, please. So I'm giving a nonverbal. I'm giving a verbal in all seriousness. So that's the first step, right? Show your disapproval. They have to know. You can't say, honey, that sounded really disrespectful. What? No, especially at 3 years old, you want to be very clear. Feel how my voice gets lower. I get more serious, and I want them to know, no, that is not okay. Okay, step 1. Step 2, link their behavior to the result. So I talked about this in the blog about really working and noticing being good, catching them being good, and then labeling what the results are of those behaviors. In this one, you're going to link their disrespectful behavior to results. This is going to help you when it comes to the consequences, which we're getting to. So I would say something like, you just said, you're not the boss of me. That is not okay. You need to stop. That makes me feel very angry when you do that. Just see how I did it? I linked, when you talk to me that way, I get really angry and then I don't want to help you, or I can't hear you, or something like that. So you're going to link, what did they do and what was the result? So I love this. You just yelled, you're not the boss of me. That is not okay. I feel angry now. So even 3 and older can start to go, oh, okay. You don't have to be big and harsh to be an authority here. It's actually easier for them to listen if you're able to stay calm but clear. Third step, prompt them what to do. What can they do? They need to express themselves. The reality is they're not going to be able to stop and squash those feelings for the rest of their life. They will just learn to pack them inside, which can end up with a lot of different psychological problems. So we don't want to do that. We want to show them what they can do instead. So prompting, what if they go to interrupt me? I say, oh, remember the rule. If I've taught them to put their hand on my arm, for example, I'll prompt them. And then the child will put their hand on my arm. I'll finish what I'm saying to the other adult. I'm not going to make it take 10 minutes. Let's be honest. I'm going to take about 30 seconds to wrap it up because I want to catch them being good. So then I'll turn to them and say, oh, you waited. Thank you. Because remember, when I catch them being good and I label the positive results of their behavior, they're going to be more excited about doing that in the future. So whatever you've worked out with them, you might have worked out that they come up and say, excuse me. And so they come up to interrupt you talking to someone else and you say, oh, sounds like, excuse me. Wait, watch, listen, and let them have a chance to say it. So they say, I don't like you. They might say that when they get really mad, they're not happy with your choice. I don't like you. What could they say instead? How about something like, I'm mad? They have to be able to speak up, but they can do it in a respectful way. So you decide what's respectful. So list the disrespectful behaviors you're seeing and then try and decide what would be your prompt, because that child then will learn what they can do instead. You're never going to make it so a child's not angry, never, not ever. It just happens. So the third one is, you're not my mom, or you're not my dad, something like that. Or you can't make me. Same idea. You might have them say something like, I'm frustrated, or I want a choice. So you're going to literally think about, what are the disrespectful behaviors you're seeing? How are you going to show them it's not okay? Let them know how that behavior is impacting the environment, and then prompt them what you want them to do. So this is for addressing. Now, let's say a child is really upset. One of the people in my effective discipline online class pointed out, this didn't work. Like, you could do these things, but if the child is super upset and they're falling apart and they're like, nah, and they're having a tantrum and saying it, their brain, their thinking brain, remember, they flipped their lid. They're not online. So this isn't when the strategy is going to work. It's when they start to calm down, when you can tell that they can hear you and listen at this point, and maybe they're open to some reason. That's where you'll have these conversations. So it doesn't work during that time. So when the behavior continues, or when you feel like you need to do more, like you've done this prompting, you've shown them what's good and what's disrespectful and what's respectful, and they're still doing it, and now you keep prompting them what they can do, but they still keep doing it. Now is when you might get to the logical consequences. So you have 3 choices, maybe more, but there's 3 that really fit when it comes to effective discipline. The first one is logical consequences. Second one is breaks. And the third one is ignore. So I'm going to briefly cover those. Then I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll be around for some questions. So stick with me here. Let's roll. So let's get to those consequences. Well, think about consequences, the biggest trick with them. Remember, there's prisons full of people who knew what they were doing was wrong and did it anyway. They knew there would be consequences and they did it anyway. So consequences in and of themselves are not effective. It's the way that you do them. So it needs to be connected to the behavior. So if I say, you were disrespectful to me, now you can't have your job of line leader. That makes no sense. Those are not connected. They're not logical. So the child's more likely to fight you on it. You spoke to me disrespectfully. Now you can't have the car for 2 days, to a teenager. It's like, how is that related? So it's really linking the consequence to the behavior. So you have to be able to follow through with it. So it can't be something like, I remember threatening my daughter, we're not going to go to grandma's. It's Easter. It's Easter. Really? We're not going to go to grandma's? We're going to grandma's. So it needs to be, you're calm. You're offering a logical consequence, one that is connected to their behavior and that you can follow through on. It's logical, so it makes sense. You're going to want to decide the consequence ahead of time. So some consequences that I really like when it comes to this kind of behavior, when it comes to disrespect, is you can't have the thing that you're asking for. If it's like, if they're, for example, I haven't let them have a cookie, and they're like, no, I want a cookie. I can have one if I want to. Oh, that really sounds like disrespect. That is not okay. You can say, I'm mad or I'm sad. That's okay. To see how I listened, showed them nonverbally, and then prompted them what they could do. So let's say they do it again or they keep going. I can say, you need to stop right now or the cookies are going away for good. Do you see how those are connected? It's like you're whining about the cookies. You won't stop about the cookies. You're being disrespectful about the cookies. Those will need to go away. If it's media, if they're like, I want the phone, give me the phone goes away. If they're fighting over a toy, the toy goes away, right? So these are logical consequences. So I'm not going to listen to you or continue this conversation if you're disrespectful. That's another very logical one. If you want me to listen to you, you need to be respectful. I'm here. My heart's open. I'm ready to listen and try and problem solve with you. If you are disrespectful, we're moving on. I'm going to do something else. So that's kind of where logical consequences might step in there. Next one, breaks. So in the old days, it was, you get a timeout. You speak to me disrespectfully, I am punishing you with a timeout. Now what we know about timeouts is they're way more effective when they're offered as a break. And this is actually a logical consequence. So these are combined, right? So if you can't talk to me respectfully, you're going to need to go take a break till you calm down. And when you've calmed down, then you can come back and talk to me. And you might do the same thing for yourself. So if you start to get and start to say something disrespectful to the child, you might stop yourself and say, oh, remember, we talked about the consequence about disrespectful communication. We need to go take a time out. I'm going to take a time out until I can have a respectful conversation with you. I'll check back with you in about 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. That is powerful, especially for kids like 6 and older. They're going to go, you're taking a time out too? Yes, it is very effective. So really, it's not used as you need to do it because I say so. It's more like, this is happening. This is how I'm feeling. This is not okay. So we need to take a break and come back when we can speak respectfully. Does this click for you guys? I hope so. Almost done. I love this because the thing is, kids can also be disrespectful to things. We need to teach them respect for our things. So putting recycling in the recycle bin is respect for things. Taking care of toys is respectful. So if they can't be respectful around something, that thing needs to take a break. So if my daughter, when she was on media more and more at 8, 9 years old, she would start to get really crabby and start to be disrespectful. And then it would go away. That was logical because the more she was on it, the more disrespectful she was. So then it had to go away because she wasn't able to manage her behavior to me when she was on media a lot. So that's also another one of those ones that can really click for you. The very last strategy I'm going to give you today is ignore small misbehavior. So some types of disrespect, maybe they're saying, oh, poopy butt or something like that. If you can totally ignore that behavior, it's going to go away. Because if we don't give it power and attention, it's likely to become extinct. They want to repeat behaviors that get you really engaged, especially if you haven't connected with them recently. So these are some of the behaviors you might totally ignore, act like they never happened, and then jump in and start building a connection with the child as soon as you're past that experience. So if they start being respectful again, then you go, hey, hi, I'm glad your respectful self is back. Let's go play a game, or let's go for a walk together, or let's have a talk or something. So the very last thing I want to say is one of the most important. Barbara Coloroso talks a lot about bullying and how to prevent bullying and build behaviors that make it so that kids are less likely to bully. And this is where the circle back around comes in. Don't let it go. Let it go in that moment, but come back later that night, the next day, and say, do you remember yesterday when you interrupted me in my conversation, grabbed me by the face and turned my face, or said something rude? Like, just remind them of the behavior. Remember when you did that? That was not okay. So now we need to make restitution. How are you going to make amends for that behavior? So let's say they said something rude to grandma. Maybe you write us an I'm sorry note to grandma. The trick is to have the child brainstorm ways with you that they're going to make a plan for making restitution. So they need to. So if they hurt a friend's feeling, they need to go back around and think of how are they going to help that friend feel better. If they were really disrespectful to you, they should think about now, like, how are they going to make that up? Are they going to say that they're sorry? Are they going to think about other ways that they could do it, and you guys are going to problem solve that together? How are you going to really address that behavior? Because at the end of the day, they need to have a chance outside of that really stressful moment to reflect, just like we all do, right? So just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. It means the absolute world that I tried a new thing, Zoom, so that I could share visuals with you as I'm walking through the different lessons that I'm teaching each week. And so I'm really glad that you not only showed up today, but you stayed with me. So thank you. We're more together. And raising these young kids is not easy. It takes a village. It takes all of us to work together to teach kids respect. So final story. I remember I was at a local YMCA, and it was brand new, and we were there at the opening, and we were all celebrating, and there was this little basketball hoop, and some older kids were grabbing the hoop and tearing it down, and then grabbing it and tearing it down, and nobody was saying anything. And I wanted to speak up. I wanted to say something, but I felt like I couldn't because I didn't want to have other parents get mad at me or upset with me. I regret that because we need to stand up for what's right and teach respectful behaviors. So I could have stepped in and say, oh, you guys are really hurting this brand new piece of equipment. We want to be able to use that for years and years. Please treat it respectfully. I should have been able to stand up and say that. So please, please, please be willing to stand up when there's disrespect and teach, knowing, just like me, when I accidentally walked down that shoe aisle in front of somebody, I just didn't know. So give kids the benefit of the doubt and give them a little love, a little kindness, and a lot of teaching on what's respectful. Thank you so much, you guys.